Welcome back to the Response Drivers Podcast, where we feature top marketing minds and dig into their inspiring stories. Learn how these leaders think and find big ideas to push your results and sales to the next level. Now, let's get started.
Hey, I'm Rick Rapay, host of the Response Drivers Podcast. Here we dive deep with marketing experts and innovators to learn how they approach targeted marketing and use data-driven strategies to acquire and retain customers. We'll talk about what's working, what's changing, and how we can stay ahead in an evolving marketing landscape. Response Drivers is brought to you by RPM Direct Marketing. RPM helps companies develop hard-hitting direct mail creative and utilize advanced testing and targeting methodologies to reach customers and prospects. Our goal is to fully optimize your marketing performance to drive more sales and exceed growth expectations. RPM delivers smarter, more profitable direct mail solutions so you can turn your direct mail programs into a predictable, efficient sales channel. Check out rpmdm.com to learn more. I am excited to catch up with my guest today. Ernest Tavares III is a growth marketing expert and founder of First Step Growth, a performance-focused agency helping startups scale through paid media, analytics, and go-to-market strategy. With over a decade of experience, he's personally deployed $200 million across a diverse set of advertising mediums, from TikTok ads to national television commercials and everything in between. Ernest and I met working together on one of our clients, Mochi Health, in fact. Ernest specializes in driving efficient customer acquisition for healthcare, AI, and consumer brands. Thanks for joining us today, Ernest.
Thanks for having me.
So in my research, I found out that you grew up in Waimea, Hawaii, and you were one of the first or the first in your family to earn a college degree from Wharton, and that's quite a journey. Can you tell me a little bit more about your career journey and how you ended up as a marketing expert?
Yeah. If we're going back to high school, I had like a deep desire to kind of leave Hawaii, which is a hard thing to do. A lot of my peers typically don't. So I wanted to, push myself to kind of see something new and kind of, change the environment a bit. So when college applications times came through, I immediately tried to apply to schools as far as possible from home. And I obviously got accepted to Wharton. I was actually accepted on a full ride scholarship, so that made the decision quite easy for me.
Mm,
And while at Wharton, a lot of my peers they favored kind of finance and accounting. So a lot of these folks, knew that they wanted to be investment bankers before they even got there. And so
mm,
I felt a lot of pressure to kind of go towards the finance or accounting route. But
mm,
I just found those classes very dry and just lacking a lot of creativity.
mhm.
So when it became time to pick a major, I chose marketing because it felt like the one that was going to be least restrictive in terms of how creative I could be.
It seems like it fits your personality perfectly.
Yeah, I think so.
Um, I found in my research that you joined a Series A startup called Mochi Health and dramatically scaled the sales pipeline. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and what were the key factors that enabled you to achieve the rapid growth?
Yeah, so Mochi Health is in the GLP-1 space, so the space itself was very hot. It was just a very popular product that they were offering. However, growth marketing was absolutely critical in getting them from 10 mil to roughly 100 mil in ARR. The channels that we used were pretty, I'd say, cutting edge mix of really kind of modern marketing.
Mhm,
Influencer marketing was absolutely critical. We also leveraged Meta ads and Google ads very heavily in order to scale again from their 10 mil base to upwards of 100 million. And we did so in roughly 6 months. So that was probably some of the most aggressive growth marketing work that I've done.
Wow, and that was one of your sort of first experiences in the startup
Yeah.
marketing world?
Yeah, it was. So I kind of came from larger enterprise brands, but I
Hmm.
realized that things weren't moving quickly enough for me there. So I decided to work for, I was the head of growth for three direct-to-consumer startups over the last 5 years. And each one of those startups were in what I'd consider white hot industries. So GLP-1s or AI. But what I've quickly found is if you kind of have a good playbook for growth, you can swap out the industry, and a lot of those tactics will scale and will work. They're very industry agnostic.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow, that's quite a bit of experience in a short amount of time. Um, what inspired you to establish First Step Growth, and how does your agency differentiate itself in the crowded marketing landscape?
Yeah, so we're really small. It's basically just three people. I'm primarily the client-facing side of the house, and most people just do work directly with me. I just started to start First Step Growth because, again, I realized that a lot of these tactics that I was applying to numerous healthcare startups and startups in general generally were working. And I felt that I could have a larger impact and work with more clients and grow more businesses simultaneously by working as an agency owner as opposed to kind of being in-house. So it was kind of a desire for me to once again just test my skills and kind of test the playbook that I have, but
Hmm.
across more clients. I tried to build the growth agency that I kind of wish that I had as a head of growth for multiple startups.
Yeah, that sounds really similar to how we started RPM. Gosh, 17 years ago now. I was had a lot of experience as a direct marketing expert working on big brands, and I wanted to take that expertise and all the knowledge that I had out of running their big programs and make it accessible to a lot of other companies as well. So it's a great way to start in the business, and congratulations on starting your business. Now you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
And I'm 6 months in, so I'm relatively fresh, but excited to continue this journey.
that's awesome. How do you leverage data and analytics to inform your marketing strategies and help drive your customers' programs? Can you talk a little bit
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, I think like data-driven marketing is, kind of a given these days.
Hmm.
If you aren't using data or even AI at this point in kind of your marketing workflows, you're probably going to get left behind. And so my agency and kind of the philosophy that I've developed through kind of deploying over $200 million on Facebook and Google is to really focus on the platform's ability to find users. I think a
Mm,
really traditional marketer might consider extreme segmentation to be a productive strategy, trying to segment an audience and match the message perfectly. But in the age of AI and kind of digital marketing, I help just feed signals to the platforms using things like conversion feeds and customer match lists, excuse me, to essentially allow platforms like Meta and Google to do what they do best, which is, again, convert users. So I don't focus as much on segmentation or audience targeting as you might expect. Instead, I kind of just focus on feeding effective signals to these platforms.
interesting. That's very interesting. Um, in an era dominated by digital marketing, how do you perceive the role of direct mail in a comprehensive marketing strategy?
I love direct mail. I think that it's often kind of forgotten about or thought of a bit too late in a lot of kind of marketing strategies. It's really simple to get a Google Ads account or like a Meta account up and running in an afternoon. But you're competing with everyone else who's able to do that in an afternoon as well. So I think
Hmm.
direct mail holds a special place in my heart because it's a physical ad, which I think are extremely powerful. And
Hmm.
it really allows your brand to stick out in a sea of digital ads. And
Hmm.
so effectively sprinkling in some direct mail alongside digital it
Hmm.
usually creates a situation where, one plus one is greater than two. You can allow both digital and more traditional offline channels to kind of synergize and hopefully create a more effective customer acquisition strategy.
Yeah, that sounds great. Do you know, have you have you found success integrating the traditional marketing channels like direct mail with digital? Have you seen any examples of where those things have kind of come together?
Yeah. So I think one thing that I really enjoy leveraging direct mail for is retargeting.
Hmm.
So it's fairly cheap to, get impressions and drive website traffic to, a website. But then kind of sending like a tasteful direct mail. It can be automated using platforms, or it
Hmm.
could be, more manual. But
Hmm.
essentially pairing that a digital retargeting strategy as well as kind of an offline retargeting strategy to kind of get to users who just might not respond to digital ads. And in
Hmm.
certain segments, like the segment that we worked in together in Medicare,
Hmm.
I think direct mail is actually better than doing digital ads.
Yeah, we were targeting the Medicare audience, so they were definitely older and less involved in a lot of these digital channels. So direct mail was a natural fit in that regard. Um, Surprisingly, there's a lot of research on the younger audiences being really favorable to direct mail as well. It's kind of interesting. We think of it as something that only old folks would like, but a lot of younger people
Yeah,
don't get much mail, so they are intrigued by it when they do get it.
exactly. I think, like anyone younger than me, grew up with a smartphone. And so they're like almost numb to some of the digital ads because they've seen those, their whole lives. They've
Yeah,
interacted, they grew up with Instagram and TikTok.
yeah.
And so kind of having like a really, really well designed, really clean direct mail offering will
Hmm.
probably stick out a bit more compared to just another digital ad impression that they're getting.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned something a little bit earlier about AI, and I'm not familiar with that term. I'm just kidding. Everyone is talking about AI nonstop, of course. So I have to ask you sort of how do you see AI and machine learning shaping the future of marketing, and how are you using it?
Yeah. So I've been able to kind of scale my ability to produce, especially written content, but visual is definitely coming pretty aggressively. This is part of the reason why I'm able to keep my agency size so small.
Hmm.
I've found a ton of really useful tools. One of the ones that I really like is called Jasper AI. And
Hmm.
that's a tool where essentially you can feed and train the AI model on specific branded content that you've already written. And then
Hmm.
all the content that it spits out after that will actually be in the tone and kind of the voice and speak to your target demo. So
Hmm.
being able to spend, an hour in Jasper will allow me to basically create an SEO strategy and SEO content that would probably take a copywriter a week to
Hmm.
manually pick out. Now,
Hmm.
we do like to edit things and kind of give it more of a human touch to ensure, that there's still a person in the loop. But I think examples like this are just going to increase and grow even further. I'm
Hmm.
starting to experiment with using AI for stock photo images for ads.
Hmm.
And tools like Midjourney have come a really, really long way in the past
Hmm.
couple of years. I do
Hmm.
feel like doing video AI ads will be fairly simple and fairly straightforward in the next year or so.
Yeah. That's interesting. I wanted to ask you about search marketing because you just mentioned search marketing as well. And I noticed, I feel like AI must be impacting search marketing pretty severely because when I search for anything these days, I go to Google and it just gives me the AI answer instead of giving me a bunch of links to click. So like a lot of times I ask a question or want to research something, or I'll use my phone and, go to Gemini or go to Copilot or Chat GPT or whatever. And I say, create a vacation plan for me. I want to go to Italy for a week and boom, it does it. And all of a sudden I'm not going to anybody's website, so how does that impact search marketing?
Yeah, I think like SEO has definitely had to kind of come up with a quick and new playbook
Mm,
because essentially, it's been probably about 20 years since like, blogs and like just creating like aggressive amounts of like branded SEO content. Um,
hmm.
that's kind of been the way that it has for a long time. And so I feel like AI has probably disrupted folks in search marketing a bit more than performance. I
Mm,
think now folks are starting to figure out instead of how do I get my page to rank highest in Google? The kind of the goal now becomes how can I get my company's website or something to show up in one of these large language models responses. So
Mm,
I'm not an SEO expert, but I
mm.
could definitely imagine that some of these folks are, yeah, really having to rewrite their existing playbooks.
Yeah. Well, I guess that just shifts the priority probably to the paid advertising instead of the organic search.
Yeah, and kind of what I'm sort of waiting for is what paid advertising will look like for some of these companies like ChatGPT. They haven't, figured out a way to start monetizing through ads yet. But when they do, I think companies like, Google and Meta, which have had, a significant hold on digital marketing, will probably start to lessen their hold and have to come up with creative ways to compete with some of these new AI companies.
Hmm, that's interesting. So they'll become, even though they're not advertising platforms yet, they are going to become advertising platforms soon.
It's only a
That's
matter of
kind of
time.
that's kind of sad. It's kind of like everything's great until they monetize it, and then it like
Yeah,
usually
until
goes
they
downhill.
figure out that their investors need to make some money back.
Yeah, wow. Um, well, marketing is evolving so rapidly. How do you stay ahead of trends and ensure that you're using the most recent, most modern tools and tactics?
Yeah, so I really do enjoy subscribing to platform blogs, I think kind of just hearing it from the platforms themselves, hearing the updates first, is a great source of kind of fresh ideas and kind of staying ahead and knowing
Mhm.
what's in the pipeline. But other tools, like I love listening to business podcasts. There are a few like Response Drivers that I do enjoy. But I'd say newsletters and podcasts in general are pretty helpful as
Yeah.
a kind of an additional way to keep up to date.
Do any other great podcasts come to mind that you would think of that are good for marketing topics?
Um, None that are strictly marketing focused. I
Okay.
do listen to a few podcasts that are a little more like startup kind of business growth focused.
One of my favorites right now, I'll just give it a shout out. Diary of a CEO. I
Okay.
love that podcast. They have like a lot of great guests on that show. I'm trying to learn from watching every episode of that podcast. So maybe someday I'll be as good as they are. Um, gotta have a goal, right? Um, would you mind sharing or talking about a significant challenge that you've faced as in a marketing campaign and maybe how you overcame it? Does anything come to mind? We did some pretty
Yeah.
hard things at
Yes.
Connie Health. Maybe there's something there that we could talk about.
In general, working in highly regulated industries such as
Mm,
finance and especially healthcare, I'd
mm,
say a barrier to overcome is doing marketing and doing performance marketing compliantly.
hmm
With the advent of AI, you have a lot of AI systems that are now just automatically checking things on Meta and Google, and disapproving them because, the AI platform thinks that what you're writing is non-compliant or in a way is breaking some guidelines. And I've
mm,
actually, in the past year, seen this especially happen a lot on Meta, where things will get flagged and companies will actually be penalized for breaking guidelines, but they actually are compliant. And so for that reason, I'm a Facebook marketer. That's usually been kind of my bread and butter channel. But
hmm
because the compliance has gotten fairly automated and it can oftentimes be wrong, I've actually started to diversify my channel mix into other digital channels. Shout out to like Reddit ads. Love
mm,
Reddit ads, and I've seen a lot of good kind of performance come out of there. So kind
hmm
of just understanding how to use the platforms compliantly, but and without sort of, putting any businesses at risk.
What advice would you give to individuals who are aspiring to enter the field of growth marketing? Um, Young people in college or just graduating from college, what
Yeah.
advice would you give them?
Yeah, so growth marketing is such an umbrella term, There's so many aspects of what you could do, and there's so many skill sets that, fall into this category. You could be
Hmm
an amazing writer. You could just be really sharp with spreadsheets. You could just, be a really solid video or content creator. So I think that it's almost like the paradox of choice, right? There's so many things that you could do to become an effective marketer.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think the advice that I would give is pick one skill and then really master it. For me, that was paid marketing. It spoke to me. I liked handling money. I'm not the most gifted long form writer. And I
Hmm.
really liked how it was kind of like almost like optimizing a stock portfolio, if you will.
Hmm.
But basically, I chose to kind of focus on paid for like the first 5 years of my career. And then after that, I had a skill set that I could then kind of apply and drive success for businesses of all sizes and all types. So while it is like very, it's hard to not want to boil the ocean and learn everything all at once. I would say try to
Hmm.
master like one or two skills that you feel that you can create a strong foundation and then grow other skills on top of that. I picked up SEO because, people needed somebody to write effective blogs, and I was the one man marketing department. But because I had paid and I was able to like scale that and have a solid foundation there, I could take more risks on SEO. It didn't need to produce as much volume immediately because I
Hmm.
had a few things that I was more comfortable with.
Well, once you have that foundation built, then you can add on to it with more experiments, and especially in the startup world. I know your mentality is your mentality sort of like try things, fail fast, and learn, and then evolve. I mean, that's kind of the standard startup playbook. Don't put too much money into anything initially, and obviously everything's a test.
Yeah, I think of growth marketing, especially when I like first sign on a client or like I'm getting just onboarded into a new role, is
Hmm.
it's kind of akin to like spinning as many plates as possible.
Mm.
But then you'll start to realize and pattern match, and you'll start to realize, hey, like one plate might be spinning more effectively or more quicker or in a better direction than the other. And
Sure.
so being really quick to drop the other plates and kind of,
Yeah.
diversify away from them.
Yeah.
I think just kind of being pretty savvy at data analysis really helps you to
Yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
what's driving the business impact.
What are some of the key metrics that you focus in on when you're doing that? Well, it's sort of looking at the channel mix, and what are the decision-making metrics?
Yeah. So again, we have like in an ad management UI, you have so many metrics. You have clicks, impressions, click-through rate. It's almost too much for a human brain to fully comprehend.
Mm.
So I kind of forced myself to put the blinders on
Hmm.
and just focus on ROI.
Hmm.
Usually there will be other metrics that will help you understand the differences in ROI. But in my
Hmm.
opinion, when it comes especially to performance marketing, focusing on something like just like CAC really leaves some of the revenue side and how profitable things might be out of the picture. So I think just focusing on ROI, using a couple of other metrics like CAC tends to be most effective because there's
CAC
just
stands
so
for
much.
cost per acquired customer, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to make sure that I explain that for anybody that doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. I love it. I mean, I was like cost per acquisition or cost per sale or cost per acquired
Yeah.
customer, because it includes the cost of the marketing and also the results. And then ROI also includes the third component, right? Which is more like, well, now what did I sell? And what's the lifetime value of that sale or the longer term value of that sale so that I can really figure out like for every dollar that I spent, how much of a return am I getting on that dollar? So
Exactly. And I think it's almost a crime how many marketers don't get to that point where they're not looking at, kind of the different revenue outcomes of some of their activities.
that's very true. That's very true. We work with some clients that are very focused on response rate, and we have to remind them regularly that, well, let's also look at the cost because, you're spending different amounts of money on different tactics, and um, the number of sales is a function of how much you're spending, and we need to figure out the return on that investment. So it's really important for sure. And I think it's really helpful when the whole team understands what is the key metric that we're going to focus in on and have the blinders on, like you said, so that everybody's clear on what is the decision making tool here? What is the,
Yeah.
the the touchstone for truth?
And I think it can be hard with marketing because marketing it's actually a pretty inherently emotional thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of emotion that comes into ad copy and comes into, the different imagery that you choose for things
Mm-hmm.
like direct mailers.
Mm-hmm.
So you could sit there all day, kind of arguing more of the more emotional aspects of it, but when push comes to shove, kind of using data to help guide that conversation will usually help the meeting end a little quicker, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. In direct mail, it's tricky because we run into it all the time where people, our clients, or someone reviewing the creative will have a strong opinion about it. And it's like, I would never respond to that. Well, you're one person and we're talking to a whole bunch of people. So we still got to test it and find out if it's going to work or not. You might be, opinions are interesting, but they're not really that useful. And
Yeah.
are there any books or resources that have profoundly influenced your approach to marketing or leadership?
Yeah, I think in general, kind of just taking a step back, like how to build a startup or how to build, a company that's trying to push, the brink of what's possible. One of my favorites that I read in college that I actually try to reread every couple of years is Zero to One by Peter Thiel.
Mm,
That book, again, I don't think it was I don't think it got enough recognition for what it was.
mm,
So I really appreciate that one for just kind of like how to build a company that really wants to, go from nothing and kind of provide value to
mm-hmm,
society.
mm-hmm,
And then two of my other favorite books are The Lean Startup. And I think, and also lean analytics. And I was laughing because they're both lean, which I guess speaks to how I like to run my business as well. But essentially, I like these books because, I think there's so many resources out there. There's so many things available, but you don't need that much to get started. It doesn't take that much to test an idea. So yeah, those are a couple of my favorites.
that's awesome. Well, I'll throw you one more that you can check out. I recently recorded an episode with a guest, Andrew Miller, and he wrote the book called The Startup Growth Book. So you could check that one out. I think it's very good for somebody who's working on startups.
Cool. Yeah,
You'd
I'll check
like it
it
a
out.
lot. Thank you so much for your time today, Ernest. I really appreciate you being a guest on the podcast. How can our listeners connect with you or learn more about First Step Growth's services?
Yeah, easiest way is to just connect with me on LinkedIn. But otherwise, you can check out our website at firststepgrowth.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Rick.
That's a wrap for this episode of Response Drivers. Thanks for tuning in. If you found today's insights valuable, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, we'd love it if you left a review. Got a question or a topic you'd like us to cover? Just drop us a message at responsedrivers@rpmdm.com. Until next time, keep driving response and making your marketing work smarter.